back into another episode of Homegrown. This week, we're joined by a familiar face, Coach Gamble, hopping back on here with us to talk about some things that we talk about behind the scenes, whether it's as coaches or with your players. Last time we had you on in episode 2, which if you missed that, you can go back and watch on the Jackson YouTube page. We talked about some things inside the program, what Nico Marchetti does, and base 2, what the Bears acronym stands for. We want to get a little deeper here. This is going to be a 2-part series. Right now you're watching part 1 of 2, and part 2 will be released shortly after this. But the topic of balance. And really in this first part, we're going to touch on the for versus with, real versus feel, and the execution versus analytics, which is very big. A lot of what kids are into nowadays because of social media and what they see in the pros. And then reality versus trophy post. And with those 3 topics, we're going to dive right into it right now. For versus with. You talk about this behind the scenes, maybe closed doors with your coaches and even with the travel coaches about what you're trying to implement at a young age. What does for versus with mean to you?
Yeah, so let's back up a little bit. So for versus with kind of came about after our 2014 state championship and trying to regroup and you were part of that, as an underclassman and stuff, seeing that world. But really, we really wanted to talk about playing for each other. I think a lot of times we get in the world of in travel baseball or AAU basketball. It doesn't matter where we're at. We're always talking about, man, I played with. I played with, and man, I played with. You remember playing with, and you insert that name there, guy. Yeah. We played the man. You remember playing with that guy? He threw 91, and we're telling those war stories as old guys too. I think that the combination where we're really trying to get our program to, and where you see the elite teams in our program throughout the years, is when they figure out who they play for. And I think it's a really subtle difference, but when you think about it, for us, we're playing for each other. We can only give the ball to one pitcher, and he's pitching for those other dudes on the bench that aren't pitching yet. One catcher. There's one guy at shortstop. You get the idea here, but we really have pushed in this philosophy of can we play for each other as opposed to just travel baseball world where we're playing in this idea of who I've played with, because man, I played with some really good dudes. We've all played with some really good dudes. But who do you play for? Who do you represent? Who are you accountable to? And I think those get back to the foundational pieces that I want these young men and these travel guys from the high school guys to take those type of ownership with them into the workforce, right. Into the real world, into a job opportunity as an employee working for maybe somebody in your company. I want them to understand who they're working for, and understand that ownership piece. So. I think sometimes we lose these foundational pieces a little bit and we kind of get off the road, but really getting back to that idea in this, especially this role, because, we're seeing these, and maybe we'll get into it later, but these crazy trophy posts and this idea where we're going down the road of declaring on what travel teams are declaring for high school or we're turning this college world into high school world, which is dangerous. And we really got to just understand in our program what sets us apart. And I'm speaking, maybe with a Jackson Polar Bear blinders on a little, but what sets us apart is the idea that we trying to get our group in that 2022 varsity campaign to play for each other. And I think that's a big step at every level, and every championship team. And you hear that, College World Series, NBA championships, and how that brotherhood comes out. You hear that word brotherhood thrown around a lot with Ohio State. And I think that's kind of where we've gone with that for versus with for us.
Right, and that's something that we saw, like you said, 2014, winning the state championship. 2015 and 16, I was here and part of that, and got to experience that and what it means for versus with. And then move on so far, or so on and so forth. You lose that in 2020. That's where we talk about that connect. So maybe this 2021 team didn't get to experience that, and so now you're trying not to speed up the process, I'd say, but you want kids to understand what you mean by that.
Yeah.
And so for some kids, maybe not understanding it right away, you're talking about, can you accept when you need to pull somebody for a pinch hit opportunity, or why you make a defensive substitution, and instead of having a kid that you've seen it, and these are usually teams that are somewhat successful but don't get the job done, where you have kids on the bench rooting against their own guys on the team.
We've seen that at multiple levels. Multiple teams played against them, and sometimes you've had them in your dugout, throughout your playing days and coaching days. And really, to get away from that is that's the next step. It's a really hard step, but it doesn't matter if we're talking about our 12U team, or we're talking about our varsity program, or you're talking about your college program, is really trying to get that idea of that brotherhood, and you saw that, again, on those championship atmospheres. How they got there was when the TV cameras weren't on them and they still had that understanding of ownership, of that brotherhood, of that four mentality. And I really, I really firmly believe, through my coaching years, and now I'm in the decades, I can start talking like that a little bit. But really, that idea of four is just there, always there, driving this program. Because we're trying to be a one percenter, in our level, and we've created this sometimes untouchable standard for us. But really, when you're trying to become a one percenter and do something that only one team gets to do, what drives you for that every year, and this is one of those staples that kind of drive the ship for us. And
another staple is how the kids play. And maybe that's where this real versus feel topic comes into play here. And what, I'll let you expand on that and we'll go from there, but real versus feel and what that means to you and your coaches talking to your players in the program. Yeah, and I think that's where we've gone over the last, 2 years. And I think it's gradual, but you've seen it in MLB all the way down. We're talking analytics, really, where we're at. We're at this idea of analytics world versus the execution world, or the real versus the feel. And in that feel world, we have to balance, how does that swing feel? How does your mechanics feel versus what's your spin rate, what's your exit velo, what's your launch angle? Those things are all important. But on the execution side, do they get what we need done? And how many times have we gotten into games, and you as a coach, as you're doing it, and as a player, we just need a ground ball to second base. We need you to get the ball in play here. That won't look as sexy. It won't look as good on your exit velo chart, but I need you to, again, do something for the team. Right. And that's really where we're trying. We saw this huge swing kind of in that pendulum to analytics, and really in the recruiting world it went there. In the professional world, you're seeing and with the Rapsodo and with the blast motions, I can keep going. But you're seeing that's all you could get recruited on, or that's all MLB is posting out there is, and that's good. That's all needed. I think that's great, but I don't know if you can live there, because I can't live there and win a championship. It's hard to sit there and, when those guys come off after scoring a run in the playoffs, I'm not sure they're going, hey, what was my exit velo? Right. Hey, did you see my launch angle on that one? They're chest bumping and coming in with some type of, giving each other those bro hugs and that love. And I think that's the thing that the pendulum has to start swinging back to is, do we have the execution side down? Can you lay your bunt down for Mitch Balla? You see what I'm saying? Can I do my job so the next guy can do their job and do their job? We talk a lot about in our program about passing the baton, right. Keeping it just to do your job mentality. And it really comes down to that idea of executing and really balancing the analytics. And I think since 2020, I've really seen the world driven by analytics. And again, for championship teams, that feel side has to come back. What do I have to do again in that execution world, and that's tough, man. That's tough because we're driven. I mean, go on social media right now and hit anything on Instagram and Twitter and all that type of world, and you're seeing those analytics numbers, and it sells. And I don't mean in a bad way. I mean, like, colleges are looking at those numbers. Professional scouts are looking at those numbers. High school coaches, we're looking at those numbers. They're important. They're valid. But at the end of the day, can you execute and help our team win a ball game, score another run, move on to the next round in the tournament? And I think there has to be that balance brought back a little bit more throughout baseball. Right, and we see it now when you turn on a Major League Baseball game. The first thing you see when you hit a home run is they have a little box and it tells you what the exit velo was, the launch angle, and where else it would have went out. If you're at Progressive Field, if it would have gone out at Busch Stadium, PNC Park, and that's the analytical aspect. And there's probably a sweet spot for both.
Absolutely.
But when we watch Major League Baseball, and we talked about this before we went live, there's the new rule in Major Leagues where you have a guy starting on second base in extra innings, and we don't even see guys lay the bunt down anymore. You said they want to go get 2 instead of 1 because they're swinging for the home run instead of giving themselves up to get a runner close, and next thing you know, you need a fly ball or a weak single through the right side, and there you go.
No, that's it, man. And I think, and there's a double edger. So we really we got to give Major League Baseball a little bit of a pass because those guys are playing for contracts.
Right. Exactly.
So they don't give so like, if they would give one bunt sack away a week times each week, you're looking at how many chances to hit a home run or an RBI. So I'm trying to give them a little bit of a pass on those aspects. But you're absolutely right, and that's the world where we're looking at just execute to get the W. You see it a little more when we get to playoff baseball, and that's where I love October baseball. As we're getting right around the corner for, is that October baseball? They're going to give that dude a high five and chest bump when he gets his bat broken. You know what I mean? When he hits that little chinker to second base, and that guy shoots around and scores. They're going crazy. That's the world we live in every day, especially in high school sports. High school sports. So for me, we really got to understand and use the analytics so we can have the best opportunity for the execution to do what we all want to do. We all want to dogpile. That's the bottom line at the end of the day. Yeah.
Winning's fun, and then dogpiling's
way cooler. It's way cooler. Got to do that a couple times, man. It's way cooler.
And usually when you dogpile, that's posted somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Which moves us into our next topic: reality versus trophy post. And we talked about this before we went live. Kids post all the time, whether it's commitments, like you said. Now it's becoming summer ball teams, or if they're changing high schools, or they post something that they did during that game, where they have a teammate who didn't have that success that game, right? So let's talk about that, and how while it's cool to put out there your accomplishments, but at the same time how it can almost be a problem for almost a team environment, I'd say.
Yeah, that's it. And this is really directed at everyone. It's not just baseball. I mean, think about the adult world in the Facebook posts. You see the beautiful posts of the family at the beach, and you're like, man, that family's way better looking than my family. Or you see that all the time. This comparison, and I think we did. You see the kid that goes 3 for 4 with 2 doubles. And you're sitting over there, and you're like, man, I'm 1 for 6 with an infield bunt. Man, what am I doing wrong? I'm not Mitch Bala, man, And I think we got to be careful and we got to be mindful as adults and coaches of the mental health side of this, because this game's about failure. Baseball, if we're just talking baseball alone, it's about failure. How do we manage failure? And I think that topic's going to come up a little, maybe in a couple more episodes with you and I, just concentrating on that alone. But really, in that idea of that trophy post, we really got to balance those two, because we can't compare, our rough patch or our low patch, with your walk-off double. We have to be, we're going to acknowledge it. We might hit that heart, or we might hit that like, and say, hey man, that's cool. I'm pumped for Mitch, but I got to really watch, and we got to really balance as coaches and understand that emotional roller coaster where we're going, man, my game's not good, or what's wrong with me? Because in baseball, especially with that comparison world, is we become impatient. Yeah. We become impatient, and we want what you had because I see it and it just looks good. That steak looks good, even though I'm eating a hamburger. That steak just looks better, and I really got to balance that comparison. You know what I mean? Because we're not really comparing apples to apples at that point. So, and I see it really going that way in the adult world and where the adults swim. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? And as well as the players. So you see that trickle down effect happening. And as speaking to the coaches out there that are the dads, just watch that within because it really attacks the mental health side of this. Really trying to handle that, the ability of them to handle failure and not being in so much of a comparison to post. And you hear us a lot talk about growth, right? You hear us talk about, in fact, I was meeting with a player today and we're having a good conversation. I was like, what can we do to help you be the best you? And that's really where we're striving on the varsity level. What can I do? What plan can I put together to be the best you in this process? And really, that's where we're going, at our level, to try to create those plans for these guys so we can compare, the Mitch Bala to Mitch Bala. We're not comparing the Mitch Bala to, the Nikos in the world. And we're not just doing that type. And we do it naturally. We all do it. But we really got to watch that on that social media world, because we can create that ebb and that flow. So, again, just this is a challenge for us. And that's really where we got to have our players keeping those reality checks in play.
And ultimately, that's one other thing before we stop part 1 and start part 2. But all the way back to when we were playing, and it wasn't as big as it is now, people posting all their accomplishments, and it's great. You want people to succeed, but also trying not to win social media, like you said back then. Back in 2015 and 2016, you're coming off a year of winning the state championship and the target's on your back, and it's easy for us as players, taking in that success and then also wanting to talk about it. And, you beat a team, you want to talk crap, right? It's just it's a competitive thing that most people do. But also, you don't want to win. You don't need to win social media, right? You need to win on the field.
Right, and there's a balance to that too. You know what I mean? Like even in our program, you're seeing us even more of a social media presence. Even in the last 18 months to 2 years, we're on Instagram, a little more heavier and stuff. But I think that's just our brand and really giving more avenues to our alum, our more avenues to our players and our youth players and parents. Just to be more informative and open those lines of communication. But that's it. I mean, you said it. We really have to find that balance. Is the best way.
And this is on social media, but we're using it hopefully for a good cause and have people watch this and take this in and relay it onto their sons or daughters or whatever sport it is. It doesn't have to be just baseball. Because you're going to fail in every sport eventually.
No, and that's it, man. And we're trying to build them. We're trying to give them the foundational pieces for life. And that's really what we're using. Our avenue, my avenue is baseball. I get it. You know what I mean? We're here because we love baseball and we have a connection there. But that's our build. But our real focus is trying to give foundational pieces. So, our 12-year-olds, our 10-year-olds, my 11-year-old, you know what I'm saying? Have the proper foundational pieces in the right order so when they start high school and then they become a college and then become a young adult, we really want to give them the best opportunities to be successful in a tough environment. You throw the social media world in there too. Yeah.
Right, exactly. We're going to stop right there for part 1.
Great idea. Yeah.
And so if you're watching this right now on the Jackson YouTube or Twitter page, there will be a part 2 airing with Coach Gamble once again. And we're going to touch on some more topics that have to deal with even more balance, I'd say, and then just more we'll say balance.
Yeah,
we'll
I like it.
Balance.
I like it.
So stay tuned. Be on the lookout for part 2, and we'll see you when we see you.